Okay, what's up to Perry? Haven't posted in like 2 months, I think. Sorry about that, but we're back in the game now, so don't worry. Oh, we're back in the game. Yeah. So, I'm in Paint.net, as you can see, and today we are going to do a European war. There's gonna be a European world map because I can't find a good world map. WTF. So yeah, today we're gonna be doing the Alphabetical War, and I might make a lot more mapping videos over the summer. By the way, this is not my original idea. This was inside by adrizzpro. Link in the description. Check his channel out. He's a Chad. Anyways, also Switzerland's an intro because it's Switzerland. But yeah, but Europe. So, basically, countries that start with the first half of the alphabet will be in red, and countries that start with the second half of the alphabet for like their first letter will be on the blue team. So yeah, so this is gonna be interesting. I guess you can see which letter of the alphabet is better, or which side of the alphabet is better, the first half or the second half. Anyways, let's just get started in this war. Let me just go to recolor. Also, this could kind of just be a tutorial, I guess. Obviously, this is kind of going to be sucky. Alright, so, this is after mobilization, or dang, yeah. Also, anti-housing is disabled. Okay, so the war starts, like, right away. So, first thing that happens, Slovenia, GG. Slovenia didn't stand a chance, I'm sorry. But the second thing that happened is a little more interesting. So, immediately, Germany, Belgium, and so when it comes to the sides in this war, they're somewhat balanced, I think. Blue team is very strong in Eastern Europe, Iberia, Scandinavia, and of course Britain, but the red team is more concentrated in Western Europe and scattered around the Balkans and stuff. Meanwhile, they start pushing to. Whoa, that's not what I want. You expect a lot of mistakes. I've only been using this for a few days, so I'm still sort of getting the hang of it. So they started pushing into the Netherlands. Meanwhile, in the Southern Balkans, though, Turkey just starts invading into Bulgaria but especially Bulgaria as Romania and Turkey start a joint operation, and Serbia to a lesser extent, to take out Bulgaria. And it's going very well. They capture Sofia, and yeah, and Bulgaria is basically already destroyed. That it takes very long. Meanwhile, Turkey is starting an island hopping campaign in the Aegean Sea, which you can't see since these islands aren't showed, but just imagine it. But meanwhile, Greece and Albania are starting a push into Northern Macedonia, which goes really well. And but Serbia also does start a push into Kosovo. So yeah, I don't even know if Kosovo has an army because the whole situation is kind of weird. I'm not from the Balkans. I don't know. Also, Bosnia is sent into a civil war. Who expected that to come? So Serbia pushes in, as well as Montenegro. But meanwhile, in the north, things aren't going wonderful for Serbia as they are getting pushed back, as well as Hungary. They also are pushing in. But meanwhile, the red team is also slightly pushing into Slovakia, although it's kind of slow since Slovakia is pretty mountainous because of the Carpathians and stuff. Meanwhile, Germany starts a massive advance into Poland. This is absolutely massive, and this doesn't seem familiar at all. But blue team is also pushing up into the to Belarus and Lithuania, and they also captured all Moldova, since Moldova is just a weak country. So yeah, they push in on all sides. Meanwhile, Iberia starts a small campaign in the south of France. And this isn't big but they can kind of concentrate their forces here. Meanwhile, the red team just captures all the Netherlands. It's a poor country, what can I say? Also, meanwhile, here Britain starts a push into Northern Ireland. that sounds weird, from Northern Ireland. They push down through Northern Ireland to invade Northern Ireland. It makes no sense. They also make a landing near their capital. And while the Irish island, because it's very, like, not sparsely populated, and it's a pretty weak country, they take it over. Also, Sweden makes a landing in northern Denmark, and as well as in Copenhagen. The Battle of Copenhagen happens, which is, in fact, a Danish victory. But, still, though, they are pushing in the north. Meanwhile, up here, Sweden and Norway start a joint operation in Finland, although Finland does use its special forces to sort of hold them back up here. But Finland's main army is in the Baltics. Speaking of the Baltics, Belarus and Ukraine the blue team keeps pushing into Belarus. They capture Minsk. Meanwhile, the red team is making some progress in the Balkans. They make a massive push into Serbia, and they're looking to try to cut off. But eventually they are able to do it and capture a humongous Serbian force. So this is a huge Serb force, a big blow to the blue team. But something that is good for the blue team is that Turkey has basically just wiped out Bulgaria fully, and is starting a broader push at Greece. They also make a landing in Athens and in the southern island, which goes well. And they push up into the very mountainous Greek peninsula. Now France, realizing what's going on their southern border, starts pushing back, but Spain does make a defensive on the mountains, so very little progress is going to happen there. Meanwhile, the blue team, Swedish, are still slowly pushing into Denmark, although it's not really as fast. They also make a second landing out in Copenhagen, which is a success, and they start doing a little island hopping, which also goes really well. Oh my god, I'm losing my breath. Yeah, but the red team is also starting to push a little bit of Serbia, and even in Transylvania a little more, although more Romanian troops are coming to the Hungarian front. At this point, Slovakia has been mostly captured, as well as southern Poland, as Germany is approaching Warsaw. With this, the Polish forces that are located here start focusing more on this front, which kind of leaves Ukraine to fight on alone. Meanwhile, though, a huge chunk of Turkish and Romanian troops cut over to Kosovo, liberating the entire country. And then they continue pushing in, and eventually encircle a large army here, which eventually just gets fully captured by the blue team. So if we're looking at the war so far, it's kind of not. It's still relatively equal. The blue team's doing really well in the Balkans, but the red team's doing pretty well in Eastern and Central Europe, the Northern Balkans. So the red team continues their rush into Poland, as, literally the entirety of the red team army is just invading Poland. At this point, Warsaw slowly gets encircled. Although, again, it's just so Warsaw is getting circled, but the blue team has something up their sleeve. That's right, D-Day time, woo! So Britain makes a massive landing in northern France. France did not see this coming. This allows Spain to make a new offensive down south, as France started calling Italian troops, which are fighting in the Balkans, to come here. At this point, Britain still is attacking in northern France. They also make a landing in the Netherlands, using former Dutch troops that escaped across the English Channel, as well as a landing in Belgium. Eventually, they connect their fronts and start a broader push in. Now, this is bad news for the red team, as now France is kind of struggling. Also, Sweden makes a push Swedish campaign in Denmark has slowly fallen apart as the red team is pushing back and almost kicked them out. Basically kicked them out of Jutland entirely, and are even landing in Copenhagen to retake Copenhagen. So, like, yeah. Meanwhile, up in the north, Sweden and Norway used their special forces against Finnish special forces as Finland starts to retreat troops from the Baltics, which allow Ukraine to flood in. Although their advance is halted slightly as the Ukrainian supply lines are slightly overstretched. Meanwhile, here in Central Europe, Romania does start to push in, and so does Turkey. The entire front here just basically falls apart. They're using Serbian rebels from Bosnia to accelerate their advance, as, it's not going so great here. And also, but at least one good thing from the Red Sea, Warsaw has been encircled, and they're slowly approaching the city right now, but, and eventually Warsaw's held under siege. Eventually, the Ukrainians do, in fact, cut Latvia in half, like that, and started pushing the east, capturing Riga, and at this point, Latvia is just falling apart. With this, all Estonian and Finnish troops and Latvian troops go up into the Finnish fronts, which basically just allows the Baltic troops, allows Estonia to be steamrolled. So, yeah. Meanwhile, Britain does face some troubles where France makes a huge counteroffensive pushing back up. But at this point, France is kind of struggling. They also start pushing back a little in southern Spain. And eventually this Brittany front, which hasn't quite been reinforced enough, is taken over by France. Now, this is a slight blow to Britain, but they're still going to make landings and stuff with Iberia, so which is what they do. At this point, France starts calling in even more troops from Europe, but Germany said they need to focus on Poland. So now we're kind of seeing the issue here with the red team is that problem is that they can't really reinforce France. Germany needs to focus on Poland, and Italy needs to focus on the Balkans. But yeah. Also, speaking of Poland, Warsaw falls, but the Polish don't surrender. So yeah, they also start a small push into Lithuania, going around Kaliningrad, which is Russian, and yeah. But south in the Balkans, humongous Turkish and Romanian troops, but mainly just Turkish troops, are flooding into the south and are starting to meet the Italian lines, so the advance does slow down. While Romanian and Ukrainians are going to the south, especially in Hungary, where Budapest is captured, and it's just, yeah, so Budapest is captured, like that. But the red team continues to push out a little bit. France is trying to make some progress, but it really isn't working much. Well, Germany continue to advance into Poland, although at this point it's getting really difficult, as Germany is very overstretched right now. Britain continues its advance to the even less defended Benelux region. What the hell is happening right now? Yeah, this is not perfect. It's sometimes glitched here, but that's because I'm just bad at this. They continue their push in as a second landing in Jutland is made, aka Denmark. And yeah, it's not going well for Denmark. They also make a second landing in Copenhagen and start taking it over. And eventually start pushing out into northern Germany, meeting up with the British troops. Now, since more troops are reinforcing the northern front of Finland, and since Ukraine is struggling to make any landings, Finland is slightly able to push back the Swedes and the Norwegians from their country, and eventually even started making it back to the border. A humongous winter campaign. So yeah, meanwhile, down south, Turkey continues to push in, although they are somewhat struggling as they are somewhat overstretched, but they're still able to do it. They also make a surprise invasion of southern Italy, which does okay, indeed, and eventually all of southern Italy is captured. And they also, a joint Turkish-Iberian offensive here captures Sicily. Meanwhile, since France is starting to reinforce the north, this allows Spain to make yet another push down south into France, and then she captures, again approaching the Marseilles. Italy is now trying to reinforce their southern line, which causes the Balkans to just completely fall, and even a push into Austria and Hungary begins, and Slovakia. And they even start reinvading Poland with the Ukrainian and Romanian troops that are left, which it isn't a lot. But the most rapidly advancing front is definitely here in Northern Europe. Eventually, literally, Britain recaptured the northern coast of France, as France is just really struggling right now. And slowly capturing all the Benelux and Germany, eventually approaching dangerously close to Berlin. Now, since Germany is seeing what's happening, they need to protect their capital, so they push back a little bit, and they even cut off the Swedish troops a lot from their country. So this is going pretty well. But this also means they abandoned troops from Poland. So yeah, a massive counter invasion has begun. Vienna is captured, and yeah, it's just not really going too well here. Sweden makes another landing in northern Poland. It's a little less significant, and then all out flood into Poland, then Czechia begins. Italy continues to be invaded from the south, as with Iberian and Turkish troops, while they are barely able to hold their ground on the Alps. And it's pretty clear who's going to lose this war. It's the red team. Luxembourg is captured, which is a really sad day. And, yeah, in total, France is just falling apart. They hold off in Paris barely, but it's not really going to work, as France is starting to lose a large part of their industrial lands. Britain meets up with Iberia and just pushes through. And this video wasn't really meant to be realistic. If this were to happen, which it definitely wouldn't, I don't know how this would ever happen, but if it did, I think it would probably just end in some sort of weird stalemate on the Balkans. But this time I had blue side victory, so yeah. I'm recording. Okay. Okay. Anyways, but yeah. They push in. And wait a second. Okay. Sorry about that. But yeah, but this time I had a blue side victory. Maybe the red side could win, but in this case, the blue side won. So yeah, an all-out push into Czechia begins. Also, for all you that call this a Czech Republic, screw you. It's called Czechia. I'm joking, you're fine, but please just call it Czechia. It sounds so much nicer. Eventually, all of Poland is captured as a push into eastern Germany begins, and it's just not going well. Italy continues to be invaded, as basically all hope is lost for the blue team. Finland still barely holds off in the north, although it's a really tough battle. France, meanwhile, is just falling apart as Paris is captured, and the age-old French tradition happens, which is France surrendering. So, yeah, France really likes to surrender, so they do surrender. And this point, Germany is just getting invaded from all sides, as even the Alps, well, maybe not the Alps, they start pushing through out of Alsace-Lorraine, And yeah, it's just not going well. They start pushing out Swedish troops, and British and Norwegians are all just landing and beating up Germany. Finland is barely able to push out a little bit because Sweden's concentrated down here, so they are able to semi-push back, but this is only short-term gains. This is not going to last, as now even British troops are trying to come up there. Meanwhile, Turkish troops are flooding in, capture Rome, and at this point, it's just not going well for Italy. Eventually, even a small push into the Alps begins, although this is pretty slow. And eventually, Germany is just falling apart. The Battle of Berlin happens, which Germany is able to somewhat hold out in Berlin, but it's only a matter of time till, yeah, eventually they start flooding into the more industrial regions of Austria. They take out all of Czechia, and Italy just decides to switch sides, and it's just now it's just Germany versus everyone else. This doesn't at all sound familiar to me at all. Okay, just doesn't sound very familiar to me. And Finland just decides yeah, and whoa, I didn't want to do that. Just kind of yeah. Okay, so that's the war. Blue side won. This was not really a realistic video. I was just having fun mapping, okay? I was having fun mapping. This is already a 22-minute video. But yeah, if you want to see more content like this, again, credit to adrizzpro for inspiring this, and also, yeah, that's really it. Bye.